Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
I saw a black and gray figure next to me in bed one night, and it touched and talked to me. This happened to me roughly over a year ago, and I still don't know what to make of it. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post, but I want to be thorough. For context, I sleep with the lights out in complete darkness. The only minimal amount of light, red, in my room is from the electronic clock on my nightstand. I've also had numerous encounters with the supernatural, but nothing like this. In the past, I've mostly seen relatives who are no longer with us or other human-like spirits/entities. Another detail which will be important later is that I'm currently writing a fantasy/supernatural book I've been working on since high school. So, I had just woken up and rolled over on my side to check the time on my bedside clock. It was a little past 3:30 a.m. I sat there for a minute, unable to get back to sleep. The next time I went to look at the clock, I saw something crouching beside my bed. It was a mostly black figure with a grayish hue to it, was very tall, I'd say about 7 feet or 2 meters if it stood up, and had long fingers that somewhat came to a point. It had no distinctive facial features or another definitive shape to it. The figure slowly moved up beside me on my bed, putting one arm around me behind my head and moving the other over towards my chest. At this point, I had rolled onto my back and tried to just stay still and hope it went away. It didn't. The figure kept one arm wrapped around me and started stroking my face and lips with its other hand. The side of my face felt harmed and like there was a gentle caress, but it wasn't like feeling a real person's touch, not like skin on skin. Then, it leaned into my ear, still stroking my face, and said,
"You're taking too long to finish my book."
The voice didn't sound either male or female, but rather just had a soft, monotone sound to it. At that point, I was eerily creeped out and had enough. I didn't get any aggressive or negative vibes from this thing, I just didn't know what the heck was going on. So, I pushed its hand away and tried to don't laugh bite it when the figure wouldn't move away. It didn't feel like I necessarily made contact with anything. It was kind of like trying to push two repulsive ends of magnets together. However, it shook its hand, as if in pain, from my trying to bite it. After that, it slowly crouched back down and just disappeared into nothing. This was the first and last time anything like this ever happened to me. I didn't get the feeling of having any connection to this entity, not like I have when I've seen loved ones who've passed. Don't believe it was sleeping paralysis either, because I was pretty much wide awake or could move when I wanted to. What makes me feel uneasy about this is that it was such a dark figure, the weird touching of my face and lips, and eerie comment about me writing a book. I don't know what to make of this.
Creepy child handprint on a PS4. To preface, I, a 32-year-old male, have always been deeply interested in and affected by the paranormal. From as early as I can remember, I always got weird/scared vibes in certain places. I would always see shadow people out of the corner of my eyes, and always felt like someone or something was watching me in my room when I slept. It was to the point where I would beg my parents to let me sleep on the ground next to their bed, and when they inevitably told me no, I'd begrudgingly walk back to my room, terrified. Every night, I would have dreams that a monster/vampire/demon would chase me until I'd eventually just give in and stop running, at which point I'd be eaten/killed and snap out of my sleep. The only time I ever had peace at nighttime as a child, 8 years old, was when we bought a gray tabby kitten. I truly feel like he protected me in my sleep because, for the year he was alive, my bad dreams went away. He died of leukemia at a year old. Fast forward to 2021, I was 30 years old and worked at a family-run Neapolitan pizza shop that was right next to a GameStop. I was the opening manager, so I would arrive every day at 7 a.m. and start the dough, along with getting the wood fire oven hot. I would always hear weird things, like pots and pans clanking together, spatulas falling to the ground, doors closing, lights turning off and then back on when I would approach the switch, etc. No one else arrived until 10, so I was always creeped out, but would usually blast my music louder to try and dull out the sensation of fear. One particular day, I arrived at my usual 7 a.m. and noticed a deposit bag laying in the middle of our kitchen. It was way too far away from the front door to have been tossed inside by a good Samaritan, so I assumed it was my closing manager slipping up. I opened the bag and see a deposit for $1,500, all cash, with a GameStop receipt on top of the cash inside the bag. This kind of weirded me out, but I shrugged it off and waited for the GameStop employees to arrive so I could return the bag and save someone from getting canned. When I saw the manager arrive, I walked next door and said, "Hey, you were missing this?" I'll never forget the way that dude looked at me. He was half confused and half suspicious, as if I had stolen the bag or something. He asked me,
"What the actual hack? How did you get that bag?"
to which I told him I found it on the ground, in the middle of our kitchen. He was even more perplexed, as he was the closing manager the night before, and he distinctly remembered putting the deposit in the safe and locking up the store. I assured him I didn't steal it, and if I did, I wouldn't be returning it to them. He then randomly asked me if I ever hear sounds or see things over at my job, and I told him yeah, that store is haunted AF. Apparently, they experience the same exact thing at their spot, rather frequently. This is where it gets really weird. GameStop always has PlayStations and Xbox inside the store, usually contained inside some sort of plastic container. He tells me that because of the pandemic, the Sony technicians hadn't been to their store in a year and a half. He tells me that they don't even have keys to the container and cannot open it to change games or do anything to it. He instructs me to go look at the PlayStation and tell him what I see. I walked over, and I see that at least 2 centimeters of dust had collected on top of the PlayStation, which is normal if nobody has even opened the plastic container in a year and a half. But then I bent over and took a better look, and sure enough, right in the middle of all the dust, was a child's handprint. I have kids myself, so for reference, the hand was the size of a 2-year-old's hand. I was spooked and asked him what the heck is up with that. He tells me he thinks it's a kid ghost that haunts their store, and more than likely mine as well. He also said he never believed in the paranormal or anything like that, as he was a scientific type of fellow, but after working at that location for a few years, and especially after that impossible handprint, his whole worldview shifted.
If you're enjoying today's video about stories of our lives, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this and more. Now, let's get back to the video.
Had a strange experience walking home through the woods one night. It was about a month ago on Saturday. I got off my bus from work to buy some beer from a large superstore, nothing out of the ordinary. There are 3 ways to walk home, 2 down main roads and the quickest being down an old, wooded path that used to be a Victorian railroad track. I live in a rural area in England, so the track is surrounded by fields. Walking down there, I heard a group of owls hooting away, so I thought it would be cool to record some audio since usually it's quiet down there. Walking further down, I saw the moon through the trees and noticed it had an eerie reddish tint to it. So naturally, I brought up my phone to take a pic. But in order to do that, I had to switch my torch off. So, there I was standing in the darkness trying to get a clear picture of the moon when I heard something solid and heavy fall from a tree behind me. It sounded like it fell from the top and hit branches on the way down until landing with an audible heavy thud when hitting the ground. I'm actually a pretty skeptical bloke who doesn't scare easily, but I admit it startled me and I walked straight home at a quick pace. It's a very old track that stretches for miles. Thankfully, I only have to walk down a tiny stretch, and I have heard stories of people hanging themselves down there. Could it have been a ghost? A petrified owl? A peeping Tom dropping his camera from a tree? I have no idea.
These are all my encounters with the paranormal in multiple houses. I have had several strange encounters over the years. My husband used to live in a very old house by a lake. It's where the rangers that oversaw the park lived. I did not know any of the history of the house, other than my husband telling me it had been built in the early 1930s. I had a feeling a tall man with red hair had a red and black checkered coat, with a flappy-eared hat, was lingering around.
I could picture him in my mind, as weird as that was. I felt like his nickname was Old Red. One night I came into the kitchen from outside and flipped on the lights. I looked over and saw a figure with boots and green pants and was too afraid to look up toward the face. I ran outside, and as I stood there the door was hit by something and made a very loud sound. There was no one there. I think it was this man. I had the feeling he was mad his hatchet had been displaced. I asked my husband if he had found an old hatchet. My husband had, and gave it to a friend. My husband had gotten rid of a lot of old tools and things he had found. I told my husband about the man, but my husband is skeptical of the paranormal. My husband looked into it, and the first ranger that lived in the house had red hair and looked as I had described. In this same house, my stepson and I had the same dream on the same night, of a tornado hitting the town. Another time I woke up in the night with an old woman kneeling on my side of the bed with her face inches from mine. She kept opening her mouth and looked frantic, but I couldn't understand what she wanted to tell me. I told her to go away and didn't see her again. I think that house was haunted by the first man that lived there and perhaps the old lady. In a house I lived in 2 years ago, I had very odd things happen. My TV remote would be moved often and I was the only one home, so no one could have moved it. One night I was standing on my back porch, and I heard my son call out, "Mom." As I walked toward his bedroom I heard, "Mom," 2 more times. My son was asleep, and he was not talking in his sleep. I wonder if a ghost was able to use his voice. I yelled out loud to stop it, and I didn't hear anymore. I started recording at different times in the house to see if I could pick anything up because it just felt off most of the time. My son was bouncing a ball off of the wall while I was recording. Later, after I listened to the recording, an angry, deep male voice could be heard saying,
Who bought him this?
I was afraid I was crazy, so I had my mom and sister listen to it. They heard it, too. I woke up once with my arm extended straight up and saw my son's arm do the same another night. I yelled to stop it, and his arm went back down. I sold that house a few months after. I started feeling scared living there. I've had several other weird encounters. I wonder if I am a magnet for these strange occurrences since they've happened in different houses. I don't have any mental illnesses. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos about stories of our lives. Click on one of these videos to watch more, and see you soon.